Hello, we are Anna, Mona, and Marie, and we are going to present Sex, Murder, and the Meaning of Life, Chapter 5 and Chapter 6. The human mind is not a blank slate constructing cultural practices. Different societies don't violate general principles that apply to all animal species. The mind as a blank slate was proposed by John Locke, but based on evidence, it is not accepted nowadays. Thus, John Tooby and Lida Kosmites proposed the mind as a jukebox. What comes out of a jukebox is determined by what is inside the records or the songs and outside inputs. Its limitations is that cultural norms are not automatic consequences of pushing a particular buttons. There is flexibility and combinations of norms. That's why Kenrick proposed the mind as a coloring book. It's proclaimed a contrast to the blank slate view. It incorporates this old metaphor, modifying it. A coloring book has an inner instruction, the pre-draw lines, and an environmental input, the painter adding the color. And depending on the painter, the outcome picture is different and unpredictable. Kenrick suggests that the pre-drawn picture strongly infers in what colors to use. It conduces us to use usual colors. For example, using color pink to paint pigs. It serves as a metaphor of how mind and culture interacts. The mind has some pre-drawn lines, while there's still a lot of blank space to fill in by outside inputs. What's more, there's just not one page in a coloring book. Serves as a metaphor of the different developmental problems we have to solve in our lives, and also suggests that our minds might not be unitary. Coming to Chapter 6, we're talking about subselves. Kenrick differentiates between simple mind and multiple mind, suggests that the brain contains different areas for each selves, and that we are composed by subselves. A domain general model is one that explains human behavior using simple rules, that it is motivated just by one set of principles. One of them is the reinforcement effect model. People are motivated by just one set of principles, the desire of feeling good. You like more people if they are associated with pleasing experiences, as if it was classical condition. But this is way too easy for such a complex thing as love. Sometimes we like people under unpleasant circumstances because we feel we are in the same boat. In comparison, Kenrick proposes the domain-specific theory. It considers the mind as an organization of modular subselves. Taking the example of food aversion for conditioning, it's very quick and difficult to extinguish once you relate one dish to your discomfort. And sometimes the feeling of discomfort isn't even related to the food, but you make this relation. This is an adaptive response. We avoid poison at all costs since we want to preserve our species. Some animals judge the food by taste, some others by color. All animals have subdivided minds, but the nature of these divisions depends on the animal. What does this all imply in the end? As we saw, we have specific mechanisms for processing different kinds of information. However, some of these systems are segregated through the brain, but some share some subprograms. So we cannot think about the mind having separate and non-connected modules, but we cannot think about the mind as a whole and unity. It is something more interconnected. Also, taking into account the new discoveries about brain plasticity and flexibility of the neurons. How many subdivisions are in our brain? Can doubts about the massive modularity position. But he says it's definitely not only one module, it's not a unity. We have to think about it as an organized system of adaptive mechanisms.
We have already learned that the mind is modular. I will now present two relevant sets of research studies that serve as evidence or can serve as evidence in favor of the idea that the mind is modular. One set deals with sexual preferences of hetero and homosexual men, and the other set deals with the observation that we behave differently towards different categories of people. So first, about the homosexuality and the modular mind. To understand why this topic is relevant regarding the modularity of the mind, let's first look at similarities in sexual preferences between homo and heterosexual men, because while obviously the general sexual orientation is different, there remain some similarities. For example, that both desire a younger partner and a beautiful partner, while, for example, status and wealth are not that important. And both hetero and homosexual men show a quite proactive mating behavior compared to women. So what we can conclude from this is that while the general sexual orientation is different, hetero and homosexual men otherwise have some similar preferences, which contradicts the idea of a simple change of one single system, but proposes instead the idea of the modularity of the mind, because there's not only one switch being switched in homosexual men, but it's more complicated than that. Secondly, in the chapter Is Friendship Akin to Kinship? The author addresses the topic that we treat family, friends, and strangers all differently. In studies of the author with some colleagues, they found that when playing in a team, people give more credits about the achievement of the team to family and friends than to strangers. Also, when told to imagine having sex with different kinds of people, people find strangers and friends more sexually desirable than family. And when you mix a photo of a face of a family member with a photo of a face of a stranger, people rate these faces trust but not lust-worthy. And these results, there's also some gender differences, but which are not that important for the general idea. So, in general, these results suggest that when thinking about and behaving towards different kinds of people, our mind does not always operate in the same way, but people have categories. So this thinking in categories and these separate systems for family, friends, and strangers propose that the mind is modular as well. So after suggesting in general strongly the idea that the mind is modular and not one big system, the author addresses the question what exactly this modularity looks like. So how many subselves live inside our head? But to address this question, he proposes the idea of fundamental motives we have instead of different subselves. So we have fundamental motives for different categories of people, because one person could also be more than one type or in more than one category. Depending on the situation, the same person could be a friend, a competitor, or a member of a whole different category. So the fundamental motives he proposes are the team player, which deals with everything that has to do with affiliation. So this motive or this subself processes information about who might make a good friend and how we get along with the friends we have. The second motive is the go-getter, which deals with status and questions of hierarchy. Then the night watchman, which deals with self-protection. The compulsive, which deals with avoiding diseases. The swinging single, which operates everything that has to do with mating behavior. And the good spouse, which deals with retaining mates. So it's tuned into information whether our partner is happy and if there are any competitors. And lastly, the parent motive, which deals with kin care. These different motives can be activated simultaneously, but only one can control our behavior at one point of time. So this already gives the idea that there could be potential conflicts between the different motives. These systems are separate, but still they are connected, and different systems or different motives also can have similar goals. And of course they are connected because they share the same hardware, they share the same mind, which is modular.